check, 1, 2, check.
I can do that.
You can put that in your pocket.
Juliana
She's
and
done introducing you. I'll
James
put your presentation. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
and Hudson. Hudson and I are meeting on a separate date. They have a custody agreement, so every other weekend he won't be here. Yeah. His mom is anti-church. So, but Hudson and I are meeting on Wednesdays of the weeks he's not here. Well, hello everybody, and everybody that is joining us online. I want to take a moment to introduce our speaker for today. We have Dr. Bala Kellep. Dr. Bala Kellep. He is the co-author of a book, Freeing Congregational Mission, A Practical Vision for Companionship, Cultural Humility, and Co-Development. I've also worked with him with different mission work at Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, and we are in for quite a treat as we discuss ways that we can be more Christ-like in doing mission work. So our church welcomes Dr. Bala. Thank you.
All right, check. Yeah, it's good, right? I can hear. Thank you for welcoming Cassie, and it's grateful to have the connection from the seminary, and I didn't realize that she's been here for almost 2 years, you said, right? Yeah, so grateful, and thank you for your warm welcome, and grateful to be with you all this morning. So what I'm going to do this morning is basically we are here to learn. I'm here to share a little bit from the book Freeing Congregational Mission that my colleague and I co-wrote, and basically what we are trying to do through this book is laid out the crisis. There is a crisis within the way U.S. churches, no matter what denominations, Presbyterian, Catholic, evangelicals, there's crisis in the way we engage in mission, and offer through the book some strategies how to do it in the way of Jesus. Because as we engage in God's mission, we need to realize that we don't participate in God's mission just for the sake of feeling good about ourselves, that we have done something good for the people, and which can often do more harms to the people or the community that we're trying to walk with, but rather to do it in such a way with mutual love and respect for the people we journey alongside. So by the time, because as myself, I've experienced in my life that oftentimes I've tried to do things to help people because I see that they need my help, but oftentimes I realize that they have so much to offer to me than I can imagine. So in our time together, I'm going to share the landscape, the changing landscape within the mission worldwide, and then just go into the mission activities that most churches, U.S. churches, engage, and then get into the crises. There are two crises facing U.S. church as a way to engage in mission, and then offer 3 strategies from the book, and then hopefully we'll have time to do one exercise, which is one of the tools from the book. With that, and then I will open up for question, or if you have question or comments while I'm talking, please raise your hand and feel free to chime in your comments or question. But I hope by the time we finish our time together, hope our time together will instill conversation, also challenge and inspire you as individual, but also as a church, how to engage in mission, in God's mission, because we are called to keep going and keep continue in this God's ongoing mission in our world. So, yeah, I hope I able to lay out some of the things that we're going to do. So, it's so cool that I thought, usually a clicker from my on my computer or something, but it's good that able to use this phone here. So what I'm going to, as I mentioned, there's a changing landscape in mission, and of course, there's a changing landscape in Christianity itself, right? There's the majority of Christian now live no longer in the United States or in Europe or in North America, but in Latin America, Asia, and Africa. That is the reality. And also, most missionaries are not coming from Europe or US, but most missionaries are from Brazil, India, and South Korea, all over the world. So that is a changing landscape. And as we see here, this is the Edinburgh Missionary Conference in 1910. And as you can see in that, there's a lot of the people there are white folks, right? From Europe and also from North America. Different missionaries who come together to share ideas on how to continue to spread the gospel all over the world. But the interesting thing, back then, all the people who are there are basically, we can call the elite missionaries who have specialized and trained to travel the world and to share the gospel and to spread the good news of the gospel. Only the trained people, right? So not ordinary church members like you and I can participate in mission back in the days. But now, with the changing of the landscape, is that mission decision makers are individuals just like you and I who are in the pews, able to engage, whether young or old, we able to participate in God's mission. So because of the globalization, able to travel and the ease of communication and traveling, people able to participate in God's mission directly, not necessarily depend on the elite. Or, for example, if your church here want to do mission, you don't necessarily go to the mission agency at the PCSA headquarters, right, to do mission. You just do it by yourself because you're able to do it because you're able to connect with people, whether here in the city or outside all over the world. So that is how mission engagement has been done, not necessarily by just the elite missionaries that have been trained for years to do mission, but you and I, as young people, we engage in some short-term mission trips, or as adults, we engage in that way. So there, of course, in the downside of that, of course, when small churches or churches do engage in mission within their own context or by themselves, oftentimes when we talk with mission leaders, one of the things is they felt isolated, right? Because they don't have able to connect with one another or learn from one another. So according to the research that we do for this book, we did a survey with 1,200 plus mission leaders from Catholic, evangelicals, and mainline Protestant church, and asked what are the main mission activities that they are doing as a church. And through our conversation with them, the top mission activities is short-term mission trip or mission trips. And that, as you can see, every year it spends 3.5 to 5 billion a year. That is how much U.S. churches, irrespective of denominations, participate or engage or spend or invest their money to engage in mission, whether send a group to short-term mission trip locally or globally. So there's a lot of money is pouring out into short-term mission trip itself or mission trip itself. The second is the orphanage care. There's a lot of short-term mission trip or mission trips, group travel all over the world to visit or to volunteers in some orphanage. And the sad reality is that, as we know, that orphanage is no longer exists in the United States or in Europe or in Australia, but it exists in several countries, like in Asia or in Africa and everywhere around the world. But the sad thing, as you can see, that 80% of orphans in majority world have one or both parents that oftentimes we didn't realize. And I remember I met one person, pastor, who in one event, he told me that he just recently found out, him and his wife, that the kids that they adopt from an orphanage still have a parent, a living parent, and it's very devastating for him to know that, because they were told that they don't have any more parents. So that's the second activity. The third is the child sponsorship. Child sponsorship also is many churches engage in this, and as you can see, 4 billion a year despite gross inefficiencies and unintended negative outcomes. And because some church or some individual will sponsor a child in one family, that can sometimes create jealousy among why he or she receive letter or receive help from people outside while I'm not receiving, right? There's jealousy within the sibling and also within the community. If one household receive help and letters and show a love and affectionate rather than the other, it creates tension, especially in collectivist culture in other parts of the world. It's different in the individualistic culture here in our United States, where we don't really know what our neighbors do, right? But in other countries, it's different. The final one is this meal packaging. Meal packaging is activities that most young people or people especially engage, whether through a conference or through a special events. But meal has been, for example, in 2018, 549 million meals prepared just in that year, and was sent and distributed to community all over the world. The sad part about this, of course, it's helpful when it's packed and sent to disaster-related community or place. But the sad thing is that when it was sent to a community that doesn't have any issue, it instead killed the farmers in that community, because farmers can compete with free food that receive from United States or from other parts of European countries. So by us we send meal because we thought that it is for the good of the community that we send these meal. Instead, it create dependency. It kills the economy, especially the local farmers who can compete with these high demands and free foods. So we ask, in terms of why amidst of all these just four mission activities, much money and time has been invested as U.S. church. Why we ask this question, why do we who so highly value efficiency routinely invest in highly inefficient programs whose impact have not been studied, right? When we ask this question to mission leaders, there are, of course, several things that they respond, but there are two crises that we can draw from that, why people engage in mission the way they engage. The first issues is this what we call selfie mission. By selfie mission is basically doing things or engage in mission so that it make us feel good. And especially, and this can be seen with the age of technology, right? We take a selfie when we help someone and then instantly share on social media, which oftentimes, of course, it shows that we do something good for the community or for the individual, but oftentimes that itself is about me doing mission rather than God's mission. So we make God's mission who we supposed to, we make God's mission to become my mission. It's my mission, our mission, and we felt good about that. And especially most of the time we participate in God's mission so that it make us feel good by doing something good for the others, right? So this personal transformation rather than service is very sad thing that oftentimes when we compare with the missionaries back in the days, they rarely take the time to learn the language, to travel and live with the community. They rarely invest to change or to help the community they are sent to. But now it's kind of a different way of engaging, where we engage for our own benefit rather than the benefit of the people we serve with. Oops. All right. So the next is, the second issue is this unexamined colonial legacy. And of course, this, when we look at the history of how mission has been engaged, is oftentimes, sadly, that missionaries get into what we call, they board the wrong ship, with the colonial power. And oftentimes, that legacy is continued all the way till now, where we assume or believe that we engage in mission because we have the resources, we have the knowledge, we have the capability to help these people in needs or that community in needs, because without us, they will be lost, right? So that perception that oftentimes we have can create more harms rather than good. So we see ourselves as well-intended communities with an obligation to solve the problems of the poor. So with that, I have a question. I have a question here. I don't know if those two crises or those two assumptions, have you perceived colonial assumption or selfie mission in the way you as individual or as a church engage in mission, both locally or globally? What did it look like?
I think that many times, whether you go to New Orleans, North Carolina, Haiti, where else have we gone? Malawi. I think the focus many times with youth is on personal transformation, which I know isn't all correct. But I think there's a benefit there in engaging young people and leading them to service. um, um, to me, in that selfie picture, your words were feeling good about yourself. To me, that's a little different than transformation. Because when you show young people things they haven't seen before, they might realize that they've been taking things for granted, and it might drive a change either in their beliefs or in their actions.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I can't deny that there's transformation or personal transformation, or even, because, that's why we do, at the seminary, we have this intercultural experiential learning, a course and a class, and also send students to different parts of the world to learn alongside with the people in that country how God is at work and how the church in that context do or engage in mission, which is very helpful, because it's when they step outside of the frame, as Salman Rushdie, it's the people who can see the whole picture are the one who step outside of the frame. And I agree, 100% agree, that when we send students or send group of people outside, it really changed the perception, because we take for granted here just the water we drink, while other parts of the world, But the thing is, I think it's important when we engage in those learning, is that we don't, because oftentimes there's a study that has been done that first is people that went on trips, oftentimes it make them increase their ethnocentricity, they feel geez, rather than being empathy or feel, have the connection with the community, they have this, I feel good thing I didn't live in that community, or I didn't part of that community. And also, so we have to, I will talk a little bit, but in the book, it's not that all these mission activities that I listed, we don't say that we need to get rid of them, because they can create transformation, but how to do it in such a way that is meaningful.
What Don didn't share is that he and his wife were Peace Corps members, volunteers. And I have a nephew who was also Peace Corps. Do they have the model right, or are they doing a better job than the church, or is there a good model?
So I will, of course, I will share a little bit, but of course there are some church that have take it in such a way, rather than they shift, rather than a trip to go and build a house or do something. It's become they change into a trip of friendship where they can go and learn, and because it's not just us going to do something, but us going and also learning together. So that's the thing. So yes.
It seems to me that transformation takes more than a week.
Oh yeah.
And more than a month, and probably more than a year, depending on. So, and I think it's hard to go from that I'm doing this because I'm such a good person, to be I'm part of several people or whatever that are doing a project together, and I don't think it's harder for students than it is old people. But I've done some mission work,
Yeah.
and I don't believe You guys, I'm sure, got good training, but I don't know that we do that very well.
Yeah.
And I think it's a whole different experience and for everybody.
Yeah.
There's some training going on that's really good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's, I mean, I definitely agree in terms not only training, but the continue, I mean, you don't just go one place here, 1 year here, 1 year here, you just, like build the relationship and, years by years, you continue the relationship and you can really experience transformation in a week of short-term mission trip. So yeah, I mean, definitely. And that's why it's important to, when there's a group, whether engaged locally or globally, orientation is our training. It's very important to learn about the culture and also learn about why we go and the purpose of our engagement is important. So at the seminary, that's why at the seminary we have, it's a part of a class where students are able to learn together, build community together before they head out to different parts of the world. So, yeah.
But it still comes down to relationships.
Yes,
And
yeah,
how
yeah.
we facilitate that among others who are different from ourselves.
Yes.
In any way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Relationship is key, yeah.
So
Yeah.
we need training in that too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, building relationship just, I mean, it's hard for some people, even, thank you. Even, especially as we come out from COVID and all, just even relationship within your own church itself. Sometimes people are shy to even say hello to one another, and especially when we get used to be individualized in our technology, it's hard. So we have to, relationship is key, yes.
Bringing it to mission into this specific church, specifically global mission. There are lots of relics. We have an entire chest to it. We have an entire deck. The paintings downstairs. We have all of our Bible stories. We have white kids, white Jesus, and then an entire hallway of Malawi. But do anybody here, or anybody know, do we still have any mission partners or connections, any relationship with our contacts in Malawi from the trip that was gone on?
That's a good question. Yeah. Brenda will.
Oh, there's Brenda. There she is.
I know that Jody, you're asking about Malawi. Yep. I think that relationship has broken down. Jody has tried her best to try to keep in touch with those folks, but has not been able to do so. And I know that that's not without her trying her hardest to make that happen. So it was until probably maybe the last 5 or 6 years that relationship has just fallen apart. And not because we haven't tried, but because I think what's happened in Blantyre has changed. Also, there have just been a lot of changes in that country, period. I'm sure it's not, yeah, it hasn't helped. It hasn't helped.
I've got a big enough voice.
Not big to hear you. If you have questions, use the
Yeah.
Sorry.
or comments. That's okay. I should have thought of it earlier.
Before moving forward, I almost forget. If you would like to receive a newsletter or tools for mission from the World Mission Initiative that I work, you can write your name and email and you can pass around. All right, we'll move forward to the next. Thank you for all that share your comments, and it's helpful for this conversation. So we see the crises, and what we offer here is through the book. What this is. So as a person, let me just tell, as a person who grew up in India, this is how my family and I grew up in preparing food, right? This is a place not only you cook rice for a meal for a family, but it's a place where you build community. And oftentimes when the tree stone doesn't sit well or doesn't sit properly, oftentimes the rice or the meal that you cook is half cooked, or sometimes it's a disaster. It can be disaster. So this idea of that we need to set these three foundational stones. So in the book we said that yes, these are the things that we see the crises in our mission engagement, but that doesn't mean that we have to get rid of everything. We need to reset the stone. So these three stones, I'm going to share you a little bit. The first one is the theology of companionship. This is more important, and especially it's drawn from the way how Jesus in his life and his ministry engaged with people in his ministry and his life, how before he do anything, he loved to dine and sit with people. As we mentioned, relationship, right? Relationship is key. And Jesus, throughout his ministry, and the prime example, especially when he walked and accompanied the two disciples on the road to Emmaus, is a prime example of this companionship that Jesus offered. You know, he didn't pretend that, even though he know the answer or why these two disciples are sad or concerned, but he didn't assume that he know everything. He let them share their concern, their sadness, but also he able to just walk. He see them as something to be learned from. So theology of companionship help us to see that our fellow companions in our journey, you know, the people that we walk with, our partners, are not just the object of our mission, or object of our benevolence, rather our fellow companions where we can journey and learn alongside, because they have so many things to share with us. Of course, we, each and every individual, we have gifts, we have talents to share. So that is the idea with this theology of companionship, to see our partners in mission or our companion in mission as people who we can journey with. And oftentimes, when we engage in mission, we see the people that we engage as something that need our money, that need our help, that need our time, rather than coming alongside. So that is the theology of companionship, because I remember when I first moved to the country. This is 13 years ago. When I first moved into the country, the first job that I got is working in this drop-in center for adults that have challenge in terms of mentally and challenged adult. So basically, I didn't have experience in working with people in people who have issues with that capacity. So I got the job as a program coordinator, and I really kind of like worry how I will able to engage with them, or what program should I create to help them feel better or make them feel able to relate with one another. But what I learned is that what I need is only a bunch of bananas and a deck of cards and their ideas or their opinions on how or what program they want to be part of. And it's amazing that it turned out like I find comfort in being with them, especially as a new immigrant to the country, new to the culture and everything. It helped me, it made me comfortable to be with them. and them also feel comfortable to be with me, just being present. And we see that there's this, we both share together, we both bring something together to the table rather than just me give or share the ideas. So this theology of companionship is very important as we engage in our mission engagement, whether locally or globally, because once we see our partners in mission as companion, it changes everything, rather than when we see them as people in need. So that is the first stone. The second stone is this cultural humility. And cultural humility, it's derived from a term that coined in 1998 from the medical world, where, oftentimes physicians and the patient doesn't really able to communicate well. The patient, out of respect because let's say a patient that comes from Hispanic, from South American culture that have high respect of power, right? Because the doctor and physician have the knowledge and have the power and just agree without really understanding. So there's lack of communication. So in the cultural humility, what it's called is this, the idea of that we never arrive, we never have the answer to everything. We always be in the process of ongoing learning, ongoing learning, and self-evaluate, self-critique, because not necessarily just because I have the knowledge of mission, I know everything about mission, right? Not just because I have knowledge of some topic, I know everything. Because oftentimes what we know is that the culture itself changed, right? The culture evolved. For example, I'm from India, and when I went to India, and every time I went to India, visit my family, everything changed, and there are things, celebration that oftentimes never heard back when I was a kid. For example, anniversary, we don't really celebrate, but now it has been celebrated. So it's, just because I'm from that culture, I can assume that, okay, I know about that culture and how I behave, but because culture evolves and we need to be in this constant learning. And because if we look at the way of Jesus, especially in the life and ministry of Jesus, of course, it took him 30 years to learn the language, the culture before he started his ministry, right? So, and not only that, as you will look in throughout Scripture, how Jesus listened and learned from the people he encountered. The prime example is how he learned from his encounter with the Syrophoenician woman. Jesus said it's only for the Jews, while the Syrophoenician woman said, well, there's even the dog eats from the crumbs, right? So, and how that interaction of Jesus and the Syrophoenician woman changed Jesus' ministry from just the Jewish territory to the Gentiles territory. So, and then in terms of cultural humility, is this the importance of not only realizing that you don't really know or you continue to learn, but also to redress the power imbalance. Because when we engage in any situation, there's always someone who has the power while someone is below, right? Whether here or whether outside. So we have to be careful and not only aware of the power, but do something to redress that power imbalance. Did I do something? Do something. Was that? Oh, yeah. Okay. So that's important with cultural humility. So as we engage in mission, especially with people from other parts of the world, on other culture who have, coming from India, myself, I oftentimes people in India, because of the impact of colonialism and all those things, oftentimes some people still like by the time they see a white person, immediately see wealth, resource, and they put high above other people. So it's important that we are aware of who speak more in the room or who speak less, and how to change that, address that. The final stone here is this co-development, and of course often in the life of ministry of Jesus, when he engaged with someone, he gave the credits to the people. For example, he healed someone, he said, your faith is not my faith, it's not my doing, your faith has healed you, or your faith brings you healing, right? And not only that, he even asked, before you do anything, what do you want me to do for you? Just because the person is blind, Jesus is not just like, okay, this guy needs my healing immediately, but he asks, he empowers the person, what do you need me to do? So that is the concept of co-development, that we seek to each other bring gifts and talents and resources so that together we can develop together. So of course there are people have still issue with the word development, especially because we can't really develop anyone, because most of us who have partners or who are married, we have this idea, this thinking in our mind that once I get married, I'll change my partners, right, the way we see things in the world, but oftentimes we can't really do that. So, so those are the three stones. Quickly, we'll look into, reflect on those three stones, or whatever you've heard. Identify one change that the concept of, identify one example of how your congregation is already living in an understanding of mission as companionship, cultural humility, or co-development. Yes, Susan.
I think our men's group is developed, and I'm speaking for Dawn. Dawn can tell this story much better than I could, but our men's group developed a relationship with a group of refugees from Afghanistan who live in Pittsburgh. And I think that has more from something that, the men are doing something for the families. I think that there has been a friendship and a fellowship that has developed where there is more of a mutuality of, just being friends.
Yes.
As opposed to just say, oh, we're going to help these families who are
Yeah.
struggling. It's more like these families are becoming like our friends. you
Yeah.
know, And, there's religious differences, and so we don't worship together. But I feel like that is a great example of how that kind of mutuality of, we have something to give to one another in this relationship. Well, at the same time, assisting folks who just need to, they're new and they're just trying to get their footing,
Yeah.
in an entirely new culture.
Yes. Yeah.
But I just want to lift that up. I would let Dawn, if you want to add something, I would just lift that up as the way that, and it was unexpected, it wasn't a plan,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was Spirit's leading.
Yeah.
I think one of
That's
the
great.
great benefits is that many times we think that when people don't look like us, dress, talk like us, we know that they're migrants. Isn't that a title? Oh, you're a migrant. Okay? So somehow you must be less than me, right? That whole notion is dispelled when you start a friendship.
Yeah.
And you you find out very quickly that people have the same needs and wants, and they have experienced many of the same things that you have. One of the things you talked about, you didn't talk about walking ahead and leading, or walking behind and following. You talked, at least I interpret it as, walking alongside.
Yeah.
And when you walk alongside, as Susan was saying, when we walk alongside these Afghan families, friendships develop,
Yeah.
and then it's a change.
Yeah, yeah, and to build that friendship or that relationship, of course, I mean, it's not easy. The first time can be awkward, and you know, you bump on each other, you see things, and oftentimes we are afraid of making those mistakes, and that's why we try to stay away from people who are different from us, right? But I think we need to able to learn from those mistakes. So, yeah.
The beauty, one of the beauties of this whole situation with growing into, our families kind of growing into one another and viewing one another as family members when their families are back in Afghanistan or wherever they're from, or wherever they're located, is the mutual respect that has developed among us. And Don and I have had an interesting situation. So Don and I have had an interesting situation this past few weeks with having our house unexpectedly, but it was kind of providential, basically torn apart, and it's being remodeled in a good way, And so on the note of this Afghani relational mutual respect and friendships developing, now the past few weeks we've had Hispanic, Latino men doing the work in our home from Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Colombia, Guatemala. And so one of the great things for Don and I is that now we have Spanish-speaking people in our home. We're fluent in Spanish in the Peace Corps, but we don't, pardon? Mostly fluent. No, we were fluent. But we've not spoken it in fluently like that and immersed and had it in our home in 40 years. So that's been one of the beauties of that, but also we got to thinking that for people who live within their own ethnic communities, and some of these men do, we may be the first contact or the first home of a white or an Anglo, or however one wants to look at that, that they've actually been in.
Yeah.
So there's a beauty for us there that we can represent another model of ethnicity, of culture, of race, of all of that.
Yeah.
So that's just been an interesting little side note this past few weeks.
Yeah. It's always, I mean, when you build relationship with people from other cultures, from other ethnicity, it enriches us both individually or collectively, and it's really amazing that oftentimes we take for granted or we shy away too because we're afraid of that mistake we made. Okay.
For our confirmation group, have any of you folks been on mission trips? No? Have any of you done local mission work? Have you been to the center in Bellevue or helped to serve at the men's shelter? No?
Yeah, he said yes. Or
Can you pass this over to them and I'll ask them a question?
Yeah.
And what did you feel when you did that?
I don't really remember it that well, but I remember like seeing a lot of the people there and seeing how they live, and that just kind of gave me a new perspective on a lot of things. Those two weren't there, so.
Okay,
But
thank you.
Yes, so now we'll change to identify one change that this concepts of companionship, cultural humility, or co-development might bring to the way your church engage in local or global mission.
Well,
Santi put it well. He said it gave him a new perspective.
we are in the beautiful and dreaded budget season for the church right now. And one of the things we've been talking about is how we're wanting to do mission for next year for the different age groups, and thinking about how can we do these changes, implement these changes to make sure that we're doing culturally aware, companionship-based engagement in the different communities that we might go to. That's one of the things that the Faith Formation team is really focusing on, and these confirmation kiddos will be focusing on later today, is how can we do this well, do this better, and make sure that we implement what we're learning here today to do more Christ-like mission.
Yeah. Thank you.
I was looking if anybody wanted the microphone.
Oh, yeah.
I think one thing I've discovered as I've gone throughout life, from the younger colonialistic thinking of I have gifts and talents, and I know some things, and I'd like to go help someone somewhere, to more of the co-development, cultural humility, is that at some point I began to realize that the people I was with, as we were saying, they have gifts and talents as well. Other folks do. Every one of us do. But I began to be inspired by the situations and circumstances of others, to see fortitude and persistence and beauty in their own relationships and culture. They're more collective communities rather than individualistic communities and so forth. And so I began to become a better listener to stories, to their stories, to the beauty of their words and speech and thoughts. And I think when we can get to the point with companionship that we're able to do that, that helps to form companionship, but also it's enriching to ourselves as humans and individuals in our own personal growth.
Yeah.
When we can listen to other people's stories and be inspired by those.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the power of listening. It helps not only, it helps for the person that share that story, empower, they feel they have the autonomy to share, and also to, because each and every one of us have a story to share, right? And a perspective to share, an idea to share, but oftentimes we like to share ourselves about what we have to say, but oftentimes we forget to listen, and it's important. I think what I'm going to do is 12:50, is that the time we have?
It's 12:52.
Okay. What I'm going to do is go quickly on the exercise of one of the tools, especially in terms of taking image itself, the way you portray it can show how you understand mission and also how you perceive the people that you walk with. So the tool number one, what's in the picture. The oftentimes when we take a picture of, because with technology we snap a picture and without really thinking through, we share on social media, but it's important to ask these questions. For example, the position of the camera. Those people who, individual who learn about photography, oftentimes the composition is important, right? How you can convey the message, right? Whether, for example, this here, does the composition or angle of this photo disempower or marginalize the subject? And in that image, the subject was marginalized, right? The angle, top down. As viewers, we see that we are up high and the person object is below. And then asking the question of this golden rule, will I allow myself to be portrayed this way, or for my community to be portrayed this way is important. When we ask that and when we say, oh no, then it changes the way you see and the way you engage. And then the third one that I'm going to stall here. So the third one, it's the power. I know it doesn't work on my on the thing. The power. Oftentimes we take picture and we like to be seen that we do something for someone, and who is the doer in the image? How does the image, reinforce a comfortable colonial and racist stereotype? We should be aware of those. So those are the three. Of course, there are several on the book, but I just want to point those three. And I want to do this exercise. What do you see when you look at this image?
Eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that down.
He might have a dirty face.
Mm-hmm. Dirty face.
Pain and suffering.
You want to say something? Oh, okay.
He's not smiling.
Yeah, he's not smiling, he's not happy.
He's in pain and he's agony.
Yeah, agony. Yes. Yeah, little scared and not sure why he was photographed or for what purpose, right? So, and by just looking at this image, we can't help but ask, where is he outside of his house, or is he in refugee camp, and where is his parent or loved one, right? The next image, I can be able to use this. What do you see in this image?
That kid does not want to be kissed, and that kid does not want a hand on his head.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't she a caring person?
Mm-hmm.
This is on someone's college application.
Yeah.
It's not quite a selfie, but almost.
Yeah.
Well, they certainly aren't smiling.
Yeah, I mean, they are, of course, confused, right? They look confused and concerned. And
The context of this picture.
yes.
Could have been this little boy whose child was being held, may have fallen
Mm-hmm.
and is crying, and she picked him up. We don't know because you don't see anything else in the image.
Yeah, that's the thing with the image. When you don't know the context, oftentimes people who, as a viewers, we can interpret different ways. And of course, in terms of, but by looking at this image, it shows that the kids are not happy, and especially holding hands, place your hands on someone's head in some culture is inappropriate.
What bothers me is that's a stock photo.
Yeah.
So it's, someone makes money on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
not just someone's social media
Mm-hmm.
account where they're posting it, but
does she have to have a flower in her hair?
Yeah, I was wondering if it was fresh or artificial.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a sad picture oftentimes. All right, the next and the last one here. What do you see in this image?
Looks like an in the moment. Kids are happy and having fun.
He's bending down to the boy's level.
Yeah.
And they're having fun.
I mean, it's completely opposite from the previous one, right? And also the thing is, when you look at this, also it changed the who is doing mission, right? That, like, you know, it's not, you can't really tell here. Of course, we can say it's the older adult there, but both of them are doing something. It's not only just one person. It's a both ways mutual engagement that engage here. And yeah, so in terms of, you know, because image, it just show, it helps open the eyes of the people, especially as you engage in mission engagement, whether locally or globally, to do this exercise, have image, to do this exercise with the group. It helped them to perceive and also to be aware of how they perceive the people that they engage. So with that, I have the closing, what idea that you heard this morning, not this morning anymore, this afternoon, intrigue, or challenge, or encourage you.
I think it's still really, I didn't see the first part of it, and Richard looks, so they didn't really talk about it. It's still, I think, really hard, and I'll include myself in this, churches, have mission committees or outreach committees. And by that structure, I think it sometimes feels that, well, that's where mission lives. This is where our outreach lives.
Yeah.
Whereas much of what you have described here is that it's not the function of giving stuff. It's the function of building relationships across cultural barriers, racial, certainly financial. And I think for me, that's always challenging. It's kind of like, and one of the reasons I wanted to have the conversation is I think, churches are, if mission is everything, mission is nothing. But at the same time, mission lives in all of the relationships and in all the ways we as a congregation move together and work together. But it's still like, it's not just this church, but like for every church. It's like, where is mission and where does it live, and how do we participate? So that to me is still, that's an ongoing challenge as a pastor and as just somebody in the church.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned from beginning, the change of landscape in mission, everyone now able to participate, right? But at the same time, it's still on the mission committee, and oftentimes mission committee, sometimes it's hard for them to get out of that committee to engage, and so they just make decision, writing a check and all those things, which...
because it's fair. Our mission, this is an incredibly generous church. I'm sorry, I know. No one can hear me online, maybe that's good. This is an incredibly generous church, right? And the work that has been done traditionally is really important work. But yet what we hear from the congregation is, but we want more hands. We want to have these relationships in the way that you've described it. We just don't want to give a backpack. Maybe we want to actually be in relationship with the people who kind of receive this stuff. And it's hard, it's really, it's a challenge.
Yeah. So next week, Hunter will talk in terms of like how to. One of the strategies for mission leaders is how to get outside to really engage in relationship as we talk.
Well, as a member of our Mission and Outreach Committee, one of the things that I think we struggle with is that our relationships are very, and they have been for a long time, very financially based. And even the men's shelter, yes, we go there, we serve alongside the men, but there is no way to develop a relationship with those men because of the way it's set up. And I think that's the same for a lot of our mission partners, is that it's very difficult, as it's been set up, for us to do something alongside instead of in front of or behind. It's just been the nature of the programs that we support. And how do you do that? I was just laughing with Steve. We have a daughter who lives in St. Louis, who was, up until she went away, was a very active member of our congregation. And she, from afar, has joined our Mission and Outreach Committee. And she does this online from St. Louis. And she keeps saying, why are we not doing things with people? Like the backpacks. Why are we not taking the backpacks and having the kids fill their own backpacks? Why are we not involved in that way? So it'll be an interesting conversation to have with her, to say, you know, we've heard her, but it's getting other people to be aware that this is not always the most effective way to do it. And you know, she's 25. And, you know, and she sees that there needs to be a change in how we do things. And we are making some of those changes, but we'll see how long they last.
Yeah.
Chances are really good that the ceiling won't fall in if we have people come to the church to do it, which is something we rarely do.
Well, her idea was actually, we take the backpacks and the supplies to those
Yeah,
kids.
like that also, yeah.
Yeah, let them, but what do they need to go into their backpacks? It's not, we're saying this is what the school says you need, but it's not, what do those kids feel like they need to put in their backpacks?
Yeah.
What do they want? What color do they want? We are making all these decisions for them.
And our kids can choose
Yep.
which one, but it's like, well, I'm sorry, because you're in Wilkinsburg.
Correct.
You don't get that.
I think that inherently is the challenge.
Yeah.
Is there's some structural things that need changed, and how do we change it? How do we do something different? Because there are people that want it changed. There are people that are seeing that it needs to get changed. But how?
Yeah. I mean, of course, there are some, partly when you talk about structure, because organization, for example, let's say World Vision is, you know, the way they've been engaging in, for example, child sponsorship or all those things, like, you know, they have the way they did, it's oftentimes not helpful. But for example, I think World Vision have changed with child sponsorship recently, is rather than the people pick the kids, it's the children choose who they want, the parents. So it's kind of like the flip. So yeah, I mean, of course, it's a challenge that oftentimes the institution, the way we do things, is being throughout centuries we've been doing this way, and how to flip, we have to flip the script, and oftentimes just to change the thing just because we have resources, not necessarily that we're able to be the people who have make the decision, you know. So yeah, it's a challenge, but I feel like it need to, this conversation help.
I'm encouraged, having been through not only this amazing TED Talk with you, but also your class, and having been on one of these intercultural immersion experiences, encouraged seeing entire generation, next generation of theologians, pastors, preachers, faith formation directors, confirmation leaders, people that are wrestling with these questions and congregations that are wrestling with these questions and that are willing and trying to make differences, and that's encouraging to see.
Yeah, yeah. Take times, but yeah, yeah. I think at time it's. I want to
We're
respect.
8 minutes past.
Yeah, I'm late.
Thank you, Bala.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Eric has appreciated this. Please encourage some more folks to come next week.
Yes.
And hear Hunter, because I do think that there is like, okay, so this is great, this sounds wonderful, but how do we move forward in a way that reflects some of the concepts we have?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Bala.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.